So I wanted to do another video today, just while I'm at it, because I tend to procrastinate and I tend to, like I said, have days, like I've said before, where I just don't want to get things done. I'm just too tired. So I'm gonna crank out another video. This one I'll be talking about childhood and PKU and what that's like, what growing up with PKU is like, and I hope I can give parents of PKUers some insight. I can't relate because I'm a PKU patient myself. I never took care of a younger person who has PKU, but hopefully through sharing my experiences, I can give you some insight. Um, anyway, I'm 22 years old now, and I was diagnosed at birth, 2 or 3 days after birth, after the tests went through, they called my parents and told them I had PKU. I guess I breastfed. I didn't know this until recently, actually. My mom did breastfeed me because the doctor said that she was able to. She didn't do it, without proper care. And then as I needed more, I started taking certain formulas for infants and young children. I think I took phenol-free. I guess I don't know at what age I started that, but I took that all of my childhood. And I guess one experience I could share is my earliest memory of PKU, other than hiding a new formula bottle. Like when I was little, I hid a formula bottle under the coffee table because I didn't want to drink it. It was a different one and it looked weird. It smelled weird. I was really little. I was probably like 2 or 3. I have really early memories for some reason. But another one was probably when I was 4 or 5. I was trick-or-treating, and someone put a Snickers bar in my bag, and I just said, I was like 4 or 5, and my mom always just said this, so this is what I said. I said, "Oh, I can't eat that. I'm a vegetarian." And then when we walked away, my mom had to explain to the lady what I was saying, because of course that didn't make any sense. I was just a little kid. Like, I didn't know why. Or I couldn't explain it to other people, at least. That's just what my mom would say, so that people wouldn't, ask a million questions, which all of us, I think, do sometimes. But anyway, as we walked away, my mom explained to me that I could just save it and give it to her, give it to my brother, and I didn't have to have that conversation with everybody. And unfortunately, and I know this wasn't her intent, but that kind of made me feel like I shouldn't talk about it all the time. And that was just one little experience. And it didn't totally eliminate it. I didn't refuse to talk about it from that point on. It just was an early experience that definitely affected how I felt about explaining my diet to people. Then in kindergarten, this is going to seem a little long-winded, I apologize. There's going to be some gaps here. But in kindergarten, I was drinking phenol-free mixed with Tang orange powder, and I had lidded cups with a straw, and I would drink them throughout the day. I think I just drank one with lunch at that point in kindergarten, but when we would all be lined up out to go to lunch, because we have to walk all the little tiny kindergartners in a single file line to the lunchroom, I was holding one of the formulas by the lid, and it busted open and spilled all over the little thin carpet on the ground, and they had to clean it up. And I guess that had happened a couple times, because then my teacher talked to me alone, and that's scary when you're a little kid, because I don't know about you, but when I was a little kid, I always felt like when an adult of authority had to talk to me alone, I was in trouble. I still kind of feel that way. I don't know about you, but whenever the boss has to talk to you, it's like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? And usually it's nothing. But she just said, this has happened a couple times. I think we need to find a solution. And at that point, I think formula had started to become a bit of a trouble in my life, just that like I felt out of place with it. And I remember, and this is going to seem super morbid and super sad and super weird, and I don't mean it to be, this is just how I felt. When I was in kindergarten again, when we used to have snack time, I vividly remember sitting at the lunch table and looking around me and seeing everybody else drinking milk, like those tiny little milk cartons, and having, gosh, I don't know what the snacks were, but I remember, I think they were cookies, milk and cookies or crackers or whatever. And I had an orange juice cup and a cookie. And I remember this really profound, and this is so weird, and I guess I was an overthinker even when I was 5, because I remember looking around me and having this super profound feeling that I was so different. Like, no one else can see it, but I'm different. No one sees the outside of me, that I'm different inside. And that was a profound feeling that I think lasted kind of forever. I mean, I don't feel it so hard and so prominently anymore, but that was definitely an experience. So we got new milk cups, new formula cups for me, and they didn't have that spilling problem anymore. And then I guess more in elementary school, I just was a little bit more, I guess kind of embarrassed about my diet. It was just hard because no one understood it, and it was hard when people asked questions because it was hard to explain what it was. One time when I was probably in like second grade, I don't know, I might have been younger, I might have been a year older or so, but I think I was pretty little. I was in line in lunchroom, and there was a girl who I didn't know who was a couple grades or a grade above me, and I was carrying my formula, and we were in line to eat or to pick up our food, and she asked what I was drinking, and I said it was formula. And of course, I was a little kid, and little kids don't have formula, babies have formula. So she immediately said, "Oh, are you a baby?" and started mocking me. I don't know. I don't know if that one had a profound effect on me, but I definitely remember it. And as speaking of the lunchroom, right away when I was in kindergarten, my mom talked to the lunch ladies, and they kind of just like, I went to a really small school. I lived in a small town, so it was easy to like see me in a crowd and go, okay, that's the girl who only gets fries. So I didn't eat healthy as a kid. Like, I ate tons of pasta because they said I had a higher tolerance. I think I ate more protein than I should have probably, but that's just what they told me was okay. A lot of pasta, and then whenever I would go up for lunch and say it was a sandwich or it was a burger or whatever it was that I couldn't eat, they would instead give me a double helping of fries. So I ate a lot of fries. Along with my formula, I got a lot of comments from family too, and I guess I didn't know this until high school, but I guess I was known as the girl who had the weird medicine drink among my classmates. I didn't know that, but my cousins and my family, and not so much my family, but like my cousins who were younger and didn't have a personal closeness with me and my diet, they would like say, "Oh my gosh, that stuff stinks. Oh my gosh, that's so gross." And it got a little hurtful at times. There was a cousin that when I was younger, I didn't really get along with well, and just little kid stuff. It wasn't significant at all. We just didn't get along very well. And she one time was talking about how bad my formula smelled, and it kind of hurt. And another time, that same cousin, and when you're little, you don't have the emotional awareness, and some adults don't either, but you really don't have the emotional awareness when you're a little kid to say, "Oh, I'm anxious," or "Oh, I can't pay attention right now. I'm feeling really jittery and all over the place," or "I'm really tired," or "I'm really hungry." Like, you're not as aware of those things when you're little, so you don't understand the way PKU affects you at all. I had no idea how it affected me when I was little. All I knew was I had to eat different than everybody else. And where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So when my mom would explain that when I had high levels, I just got kind of hyper. So then my cousins all were like, "Oh, whenever she eats protein, she gets hyper." I don't know what I ate at a party at one of my cousins' houses once. I have a huge family. But it was one thing that was like questionably high for me. And then we were like probably 7 years old, and it was a bunch of us cousins all playing, and my cousin looked at me and said, "You're all hyper. You ate too much protein." And that one hurt, definitely. It was like, I'm just playing. Like, we're all just like messing around and playing. We're just little kids. And she looked at me and immediately was like, "It's because of your PKU that you're acting all like this." That one hurt too. So I think that after elementary school, I was just done talking about PKU. I was done showing it. I didn't want to talk about it anymore. And I haven't really reflected on this before, so if I look like I'm like way in my head right now, it's because I kind of am. I don't really reflect on my childhood with PKU very often because it doesn't seem super relevant to right now. So yeah, that was tough. But then when I got into middle school, because I was just so done dealing with it, also to mention, I never had super low levels as a kid. My lowest level ever recorded as a child, and this is kind of bad, was a 7.3. And that was good for me. And that was the best I had done. But then anyway, by the time I was like 11, like fifth grade, I think, I totally like went off the rails with my diet. And at that age, I mean, this is self-diagnosing, but I would say I had a binge eating disorder. I would overeat like crazy because I was eating these foods that I'd never had before. And I don't know if you know this, but certain foods, when your body eats them, like sugar, for example, you know, when you eat a piece of cake and you're already full from dinner, but you have a piece of cake and the sugar makes you want more. You're like, oh my God, I need another piece, even though you're totally full. Maybe the cake doesn't even taste that great anymore. Your body's response to sugar and fat is just that, like, eat more of it. So I got that kind of feeling from eating protein or just eating food in general, like carbs, whatever it was. I would eat like 3 or 4 or 5 servings of food at a time. And when I was 11, I probably gained, I'm trying to think, I probably weighed like 90 pounds at the beginning of 5th grade. And by 6th grade, I weighed 140 something. So I gained a lot of weight when I was 11 to 12. Part of that was puberty, but also like me eating differently, way too much. But when I say off diet at that point, I was eating too much food, and I was definitely eating some foods that I shouldn't have been eating. And by the time I was 12, for sure, I know I was eating cheese, occasionally meat, maybe not even just occasionally. It's been a while. And I don't know, like when I was little, like when I was really little, they told me, well, a lot of people go off diet as they get older, and it's been fine in the past. So I thought, you know, because I was a kid and I didn't understand what it did to me, I was like, well, yeah, it doesn't hurt me. It's not like I get sick, so I'm gonna go off diet. And when I was 13, 14, it was in 8th grade. That was when Kuvan became a thing, and I did a trial, and it was inconclusive. But that was the only time as an adolescent or a teenager that I tried to address my diet until later, like much later. But I got my levels down, and one of my results was a 10. One of them was a 2, and I don't remember the rest of them, but like one was a 10 and one was a 2. And for the best of my knowledge, my diet was consistent. So I was just like, I took it and it helped, but I still didn't follow my diet. And eventually I just gave up on the Kuvan because at that time I was taking the pills, and not everyone knows this, I feel. There's a pill form, like a tablet form of Kuvan, and the pills aren't coated, and it's really bitter. And I'm not a person who gets sick easily. Like, I've got a strong stomach. I don't get grossed out easily, but I would have this acid, and it almost is like bile. And I'm sorry to say that, but it literally is. Like, once you put it in your mouth and have to swallow it, it literally is acidic. It's not coated. So I hated the pills. So I stopped taking them, and I just was off diet completely at like 14, 15. And I touched on disordered eating in my teen years in a different video. I think it was called PKU and eating disorders. If you want to watch that one, it goes into a little bit of an explanation of my teen years. But from, 11 and on, it was just a turning downward point for me of just not following my diet, not taking care of myself, and developing a lot of issues with food. Even though I wasn't on diet, I had a lot of problems with food. Anyway, in my teen years, I developed severe anxiety, which I never addressed. I went through periods of severe depression. Again, getting a little heavy here, but I feel like it's good to talk about this stuff so people can relate and people can, know what other people went through and, maybe how they dealt with it. But I remember when I was 15 or 16, around that age, probably 15, I would lock myself in the basement and just cry. Like, I was just miserable. And it was totally my diet, and I didn't believe that it was. I thought, oh, I'm really sad, because there was a lot of stress in my life at that point. And I thought, it's just because of what's going on. Like, I was under a ton of stress, so it totally made sense. I might have been depressed without PKU, but it was awful. It was horrible. I was tired. I didn't take care of myself. I didn't eat well. I didn't eat enough. I didn't take any formula for that whole time period of my teenage years. So that was kind of my childhood with PKU. I'm trying to think of any other parts of that people have asked me about. People asking questions when you're a kid is hard. I don't know if you have like a little script for your kids to say, like, okay, if someone asks you, just say this. Like my mom had told me to just say I'm a vegetarian. But then people say, oh, are you lactose intolerant because you can't have milk or cheese? And I'd say, well, no. And then people ask, are you allergic? Does your stomach get upset? Why can you eat this, but you can't eat that? It's like, I don't know. In my opinion, people just need to mind their own business. And I've talked about this on my Instagram page before. When it comes to diet, whether you've got PKU or you're just a normal person, other people's food issues or their diet in general is just absolutely none of your business. And if you're polite about it and it's someone you're comfortable with, that's fine. But like, don't comment on what people are eating. Don't comment on what's on their plate. Don't comment on why they're eating this or that or not eating this or that. It's absolutely none of your business. Food is personal, whether you have issues with it or not. And I feel like a lot of people do. More people than we realize have issues with food. A lot more. Like when someone quietly comes out of the depths and suddenly they're anorexic, they had issues with food before. And there are tons of people who quietly struggle with binge eating or just any form of disordered eating, like fear foods or textural issues. It's so common. So that was kind of my teen years, just dealing with those kinds of issues, the just disordered eating. But let your kids know that, I mean, like I've said, I wish I understood the gravity because like I touched on before, I didn't realize how it affected me and no one else really gave me a clear picture. Maybe they tried, I'm sure they did. No one else gave me a clear picture of why I needed to be on diet. So I didn't see why I had to. So I guess what I would say to a little kid with PKU who doesn't know why do I have to take this so seriously? I feel fine. Like, it doesn't hurt me. I don't get sick. Just explain that it will affect their future, or it could affect their future. You know, it affects your brain. You know, it makes your brain not work right. And you can even say something like it causes brain damage. I know that's a really bold thing to say, but that's something I say. I say, you know, it can literally damage your brain because it can. It can literally kill neurons. The phenylalanine builds up in your brain, just can seriously cause real damage. And it's not like, I don't know, it's a hard subject. It's really hard because we all deal with it differently. It affects all of us differently, but it's real. And I guess however you feel like you need to translate that to a kid. I haven't been around kids a lot in my life, so I'm not very good at talking to them on their level because to me, whether you're 5 or 11, you're kind of just a kid. Like I don't know how to talk to them differently. Um, but yeah, just say it's really important for you to be healthy. To be healthy, you need to follow your diet and to be strong, to grow up strong and happy, you need to follow your diet. And to do well in school, you need to follow your diet. And to make your brain strong, I guess that would be a good way to explain it to a little kid, to make your brain grow strong. Yeah. So it's hard. Little kids, I mean, oh, another thing I guess I should touch on is people talk about sneaking foods. I definitely did that when I was little. I would sneak the nastiest things. Like, I don't like meat anymore. It kind of grosses me out. But when I was little, I know this would gross out even meat eaters. I would eat bologna. I would like run off and hide with a piece of like um, Oscar Mayer bologna, or like really this is really gross. I apologize, but like pieces of hot dog that were raw, I would like run off and eat them in secret. I also chewed food and spat it out. Um, I didn't do that very much because one time I did it and someone saw me. It was a childhood friend of mine, like family friend, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so gross." So I never did that again. But yeah, things like sneaking food. Little kids are gonna do stuff like that. They're gonna, eat things they shouldn't, and it's okay. Don't encourage it. And that sounds weird and like duh, but don't ever use food as a reward. And again, my parents were amazing. My parents are wonderful. They have supported me in so many ways, but one thing that I realized my parents shouldn't have done is they would like let me have a piece of meat on a holiday, or your level was really low. How about you have some of this? Your last level was really low. And as a society, we use food as a reward way too much, but especially when you have PKU, don't do that because it creates this reward in the brain where it's like, oh, I did good, I should reward myself with food. Like, that's not healthy in any context, especially not with food that you're not supposed to have, because then you taste it, and like I said, my brain was like, oh my god, this is so good. You taste it and then you want it more, but you only had a little bit, you want more of it. So yeah, I would definitely recommend not letting children taste things. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe that's not the right way to go about it, but I don't think it's a good idea. I think that it's best that you say, it's just something you're not supposed to eat, and you are lucky enough to be able to eat so many wonderful foods that you can eat. And I know that again sounds silly, but fruits and vegetables, man, they are so wonderful. They are just perfectly packed nutrition, vitamins and minerals. Like, we're really fortunate to be able to eat those things, and however much or little of them we are able to eat. Um yeah, so I don't know, just watch your kids. And I will say this, I am so impressed with the parents I see on these support groups. Like, I see, oh, my grandson has PKU, or oh, my daughter just had a baby with PKU. Like, there are grandparents on here, there are aunts and uncles on here, there are brand new mothers who, oh my gosh, I feel for you, finding out your kid has PKU and being like, what the heck is this? And then they reach out for support and they get like 100 comments, and it's all good information. However, it's a lot to digest when it's 100 people's opinions about your newborn baby and how you should be treating them. So I feel for you. I mean, it's hard, but once you understand it and you wrap your head around it, I promise it'll get easier. Um, but yeah, to all those people who are there to support people with PKU, oh my God, you are a blessing in that person's life. You really are. Like, to be watching a video like this, or going on Facebook to support groups, or Instagram and following people, or watching videos, or going to dietitian appointments at clinic with your kid or your grandkid or yourself. That's wonderful. Like, good for you. You are a blessing to that person. I'm going a little longer than I usually like to go with this video, but there is a lot to say. Anyway, if you have any questions, comments, please leave them. I want to hear them. I want to address any things I might be missing, any things you're just curious about. Let me know. Thank you.